Hello, Empowership. It's Cecilia. Welcome to this January pop-up call. I thought I'd sneak in one more pop-up before the month end, and I couldn't be more excited about this topic. So first, let me say welcome to everyone on the line from wherever across the globe you're calling in from today, or if you're listening in on the archive, welcome. We're happy to have you here. I just want to sneak in one quick reminder before we get started, and that's of our third webinar coming up on February 7th. So if you recall, we do one webinar a quarter, and I'm hosting the next one, February 7th. It's at 7 a.m. Pacific time, so we can try to capture some more of our international friends. And it's on work-life balance and how that probably is a myth. We're going to talk a little bit about this idea of harmony. So we hope to see you there. There's a sign-up link on the calendar, part of the membership hub, as well as in a recent email that we sent you. So the pop-up calls, actually, I think pop-up calls might be the funnest part for me of Empowership. So they're kind of outside of what is our standard curriculum for the program. And the whole goal with pop-ups is to bring you closer to really interesting experts from a wide variety of areas to speak to us about things that impact our lives as women. And mostly outside of work, but today we're talking about something that I think applies both inside and outside of work. When we talk about creativity, and I'll get into that in a second. But some of the pop-up calls we've had so far, we've had a mindfulness expert, a performance coach, a chef, a storytelling coach, a college admissions expert, and just 2 weeks ago I hosted a women's financial expert, and she gave us her tips for a financially fit year. If you've missed any of these, please hop on over to the archive and check them out. I just love every single one of them. So they're fun topics. They're powerful. We want to add value in many areas of your life. So for sure, put some time in reading those. And our archive library, honestly, just gets bigger every month. So today's going to be just a blast. So for the first time in Empowership, we're talking about creativity. And I'm super excited about it because we're having that conversation with a really wonderful person and a great friend of mine, Fernando Del Rosario. So Fernando, hello, my friend. Welcome to the call.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. So before we dive into today's topic, creative energy and unlimited ideas, I'd love to share your story with our members so they have some context around you, your passions, your expertise in the creative space. So Fernando is at the heart of everything he does an artist. So whether that's as a creative director, an art director working in advertising, or an entrepreneur creating and selling fine art, he's steeped in all things creative, and he has been his whole career. He hails from Michigan, and he's worked at a pretty impressive roster of agencies: Campbell Ewald, Winterman Cato Johnson. He's worked at Warner Brothers, BBDO, Y&R, David and Goliath, and Ocean. And then if you add everywhere that he's freelanced, all over Orange County and Los Angeles, and even beyond, he's pretty much been everywhere. So I've known Fernando since our days at WCJ in 1998. So wow. He's been a close friend and a mentor of mine ever since. So in the midst of his prospering advertising career, Fernando carved out so much of his time to teach. He lectures and mentors students at the Art Institute. He's been there for 15 years. He's lectured at some local colleges here, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Fullerton, Chapman. And he got his master's degree in educational leadership, which I am entirely jealous of. Love that. And then Fernando took a twist about 3 years ago. He started to explore another side of his creativity, and he started a creation of these art pieces where he talks about real life and the intersection of real life with fictional heroes. And he has had 17 gallery showings, an upcoming one in Vegas, one here in Orange County Airport, and his gallery showing is called Real Heroes, and I absolutely love it. So through all of that, his creative expertise, his professional experience, we're just so blessed and happy to have him on the call. So Fernando, I'll let you fill everybody else in on anything I might have missed, but is there anything else we should be saying about you and your background before we dive in?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that was really wonderful. Oh, my gosh, thank you so much. Yes, there is a book in the making. I just finished a 160-page picture storybook that I'm hoping to self-publish soon, and a documentary in the making also. So.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I am like a quote monger, and Fernando's Real Heroes collection just intersects comic books and the art that comes from that with really powerful life quotes. And so I just love it. So the conversation we're having this morning, and thanks again, everyone, for being on the call. I'm super excited about this, is about creative energy and unlimited ideas. And it asks a few questions at its core. What is creativity? Is it a form of energy? Where does it come from? And how can we have more of it? So the idea of this is birthed from the law of thermodynamics. So Fernando, can we start there and have you explain a little bit about what this law is and how you're relating it to creativity?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say that I am by no means a science geek or anything like that. I'm probably the farthest from that. So, incorporating the idea of science and thermodynamics and energy into this, what I do as far as creativity is concerned, is uncharted territory for me. But when I came across it, it was such a direct and a direct link that the first law of thermodynamics. And thermodynamics is a branch of physics concerning heat and temperature and their relationship to energy. And it states that energy can't be created or destroyed. It just exists. And it continues on and transforms into different forms of energy. So if you really think about that, whether it's light or heat, it never dissipates, right? And so what if we really kind of think about creativity is a form of energy? Okay? So let me just kind of pause there for a second. Let's shelve that for a minute. And if you don't mind, just kind of follow me in this little path that I'm kind of walk you through, Cecilia. Is that, like you said, 3 years ago, I decided to go independent and really kind of explore my creativity beyond my realm of advertising, marketing, and design. And through this journey, and I'm still very much into the journey, I came across something, and I came to realize that we get what we want, or we achieve what we want, based on our resources and how resourceful we are, right? So let's think about that for a minute, what I just said. If you think about all the things that we and you and I have achieved, and how we actually achieved it, whether it be work or career advancement, making more money, a new or better relationship, respect of others, family, physical fitness, eating better, living a better, healthier life. We think about what were the resources that was available to us to achieve these things, and better yet, how resourceful are we? Now, if you think about what if creativity is the ultimate form of resource, the ultimate form of resourcefulness. How you achieve those things, if you kind of put a blanket over how creative you were to achieve those things, it's pretty mind-boggling. It's pretty eye-opening, right? The things that you had to do. Now, if you think about that and say, okay, well, where did that come from? How did I achieve that? What if it's always just been around us? What if creativity is everywhere that you see, or you look, or you hear, or you touch, and you feel? So let me give you another an exercise. Just right as everybody is listening. Just as where you're sitting, just look down wherever it is you are. Just look down on the floor. Whether you're on top of a piece of carpet, wood, concrete, and look really into it and look at, there's a sense of pattern in that carpet or in that rug or in that wood grain. There's a creative essence there, and that should be inspiring to everyone, to anyone, to see that there is creativity underneath your feet.
I see little crumbs too. I'm just saying.
So yeah, I mean that to me that the idea of being able to see it everywhere really just further fuels my creativity, and so that there's never going to be a lack of resource on being creative. So that's where that idea really comes from, and once I kind of opened my eyes or opened my ears and opened my touch to all of it, it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm a true believer in all sorts of universal laws. Like, if you take the law of gravity, right, we all know the law of gravity, right? There's no human being on the face of the planet that denies that the law of gravity exists, right? If I hold a pen out and I let go of it, it's going to fall to the ground, right? There is not one person I would encounter on the entire face of the planet, however many billion people exist, that's going to doubt that pen is going to fall to the ground. So when we talk about laws like this, they're always true. It's just sometimes it's hard for us to wrap our heads around the ones that we can't see in a physical pen, right? So when you're talking about energy and even thought, right, which for me relates to the law of attraction, positive thoughts that you're having will attract other positive things in your life. Well, you can't see your thoughts. You can't see creativity. You can't always see energy. And so sometimes it's tough for us to be like, wait a second, creativity is all around me and it just changes form, but it's still there. And so talk about like that struggle between bringing it from an idea of creative being all around you to actual like something you could do with it or make. How does that transition happen?
Yeah, no, well, and I think that's a great question. I needed to, I call it unplug myself from the matrix, right? 3 years ago when I took the leap of leaving a very, very great, successful, secure, and I put my hands in quotation, security of a full-time job. When I took that leap, I had to push myself how to be resourceful, right? And the only thing that I can count on, and the only thing I've counted on for all my life thus far, was my creativity. And so I had to, at first I had to accept the fact that my creativity transcends and goes beyond advertising, marketing, and design. So I've had over 20 years of, okay, Fernando, this is what you're supposed to do. You're an art director, you're a graphic designer, you're a marketer, you make an ad, make a campaign out of this product, and that's your job as a creative. Well, I did it really well, and I love it, and I still do it to this day. I love that part of my creativity. But I've always thought inside of me, there's so much more that I could do with my two hands. And it wasn't until, like I said, I unplugged myself from the matrix and left the full-time position and really opened myself up to what other things can I do creatively. And not just to fulfill my creative side, not just to be an artist and do artistic things, but to feed my family, to pay for my mortgage, to pay for my kids' school. So I had to open myself to all the other possibilities to not just express myself, but also to make money. So from there, I started just, as soon as somebody said, hey, can you do this? The first answer is yes. And then I hustle, figure out how to do it. Hey, Fernando, can you write a synopsis for a concept? Yes. Now, before I'm not a copywriter, but I can form words. I can, I've worked with copywriters hand in hand, so I can do it. Sure. Hey, Fernando, could you concept on a long form, 15-minute ad? Yes. Let me go figure out how to do it, and I'll go do it. So it's just a matter of like trying and not being afraid.
Is it like faith? Like faith in your creativity?
I think that's a good way of saying it, because I had to believe in something and might as well believe in myself, right? Because I'm the one. I'm in this car that I'm driving. And, call it whatever, call it the universe, call it God, call it whatever you believe in. You have to believe in yourself, because in the end of the day, you're the one who's going to steer this boat, this car that you're in. And once I myself recognize that what I can believe in is my creativity, then it's sky's the limit. I think that I do work within certain parameters. I try to be very, very honest and very, very transparent. I don't, because that's also bad energy when you lie about what you're capable of doing and you actually can't do it, and then that just boomerangs back at you as much as positive energy, right? So, I make sure that I'm very straightforward on what my capabilities are and what I'm able and willing to do, and also make sure that if there's a question that I don't know the answer to, it's just my personality to go find out what the answer is.
Yes, sorry, I'm just taking a note on something I want to ask you in a bit. So this idea, If we go back to the law of thermodynamics for a minute, which says energy is never created nor destroyed, it's merely transformed. So I love this. So if we think about that in ideas, right? And I want to call it ideas because there may be people on the line that aren't capital C creatives, right? It may just be someone like me that what I do is in and around the creative industry, but I have plenty of ideas in the business that I'm in. So this idea that ideas never die, they just change shape. Okay, so it reminds me of what Elizabeth Gilbert wrote in her book, Big Magic, which, by the way, if you're creative or you do anything with ideation for a job and you haven't read Big Magic, do put that on your list because I definitely loved it. But in Big Magic, Elizabeth talks about how ideas are born and they kind of make their way to you. Call it intuition or circumstance, but the ideas, they make their way to you, yet they don't always get to fruition, and that's okay. And she talks about book ideas that she had, and she never got on it to execute, and then like a year later, someone else wrote the exact same book that she had come up with, and at first she was pissed, and then she realized, well, no, the idea wasn't mine to birth at that moment. Like they either weren't right for you right now, or they moved on in the universe to be manifested at another time, maybe even by another person. So what has been your experience with this? Like you had a great creative idea, or maybe like a lane you wanted to go down, and it just wasn't your time for that, but then maybe came back to you in a different form, or just made use of that idea, that creative idea was transforming and then reappeared.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert also. And I love listening to her talks, and her TED Talks have been, I believe she has 2 that she's done, and they're absolutely fantastic. They're my favorite. And specifically, I tried to listen to once a year, just because it's a nice reset button for me to think. Yeah. And she talks exactly about this, and as far as ideas, creativity, passion is a form of energy, and yes, it's ideas die every second, every minute. Our brains are these incredible computers that are constantly generating ideas, and we may not even know it's generating ideas. We may not be conscious that it's generating ideas, but it's generating ideas. And it's always spewing out, it's feeding into the ethos of just different ideas. And yes, I think everybody has this ability. Whether your business card says you're a creative or designer, or your business card says something as a CPA or a mathematician or whatever the case may be, you have access to this unlimited, and I cannot be any clearer than that, unlimited amount of ideas out there. And because when an idea, quote unquote, dies, and whether it dies because there's not a budget for it, or the client kills it, or we are out of time doing it, or or you ran out of resource to do it and it dies, it doesn't go away. It finds a way. It finds a way to get made, and it doesn't have to be made the way exactly that you thought of it, right? It gets made the way the other person thought of it, and there is a link there. It finds a way to come to life. And this kind of, let me go on a quick tangent. I'm a big movie fan. I love, one of my favorite movies is Jurassic Park, the original, the first one. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you remember that they talked about Jurassic Park when they made, they made these dinosaurs, they cloned these dinosaurs, and they said every dinosaur was female, right? Because they didn't want them to reproduce. And Jeff Goldblum, in the Jeff Goldblum way, delivers a line, "Life always finds a way." Right? And of course, in the movie, the dinosaurs evolved, and they found eggshells, and life, energy, creativity, ideas always find a way to come to fruition. So if we accept all of that, if we just accept that, let's each of us raise our hand and be like, well, I want to be the one creating that. I want to be the one to bring that to life. I want to be the one to make it come to fruition. Then do it. Then tap into it. I think we get so caught up into saying, well, your job title doesn't allow you to do that. Or, you only, the 8 hours of the day in office doesn't allow you to do that. That's bull crap. We have the ability and the opportunity to do it. One of my favorite quotes is by John Wooden. He said, "Don't let what you can't do stop you from doing what you can do."
Yeah.
I think it's just an amazing quote.
Absolutely. So when you were talking, two things came to mind for me. The first was having patience, right? So patience, I think, is a big part of this, because if I have a creative idea, and this could be like at home, like I got this idea, I want to take the kids on vacation this summer, and this is what I want to do, and here's the plans I'm going to make, and if that idea gets thwarted or in some way, shape, or form dies, it really gives me the patience to know, like, maybe it wasn't our time right now for that idea to come through, but it's gonna show itself in some capacity, and knowing, like, okay, that I'm just going to be a little bit patient in how that idea comes back up, right? So I think that's, like, for me, a little bit relieving, and it could be things to do with work or with business, my health, I mean, anything, but it just goes, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of patience if that thing didn't come through. And then the second thing is intuition, which is a big part of just sensing that there's an idea in front of you, and you have to have your eyes open, literally and figuratively, to be able to sense, like, to reach out and grab it, right? So, and any thoughts on those two ideas?
Absolutely. So let me just let me flag the two things. So patience, I'll talk about in a second, and intuition. So my thought on intuition, which is great, is that so we all grew up with ideas and the ideals of the five senses, and they're really easy because they're easy. We know what they are. They're sight, touch, taste, hear, and what am I missing?
Smell.
Smell. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And those five things are really easy because we all can recognize those senses. But we also know a sixth sense that rarely anybody talks about. And there is a sixth sense, and there's exactly what you're talking about, is the sense of intuition, the sense of feeling. And everybody, it's so easy for us to disregard it because we can't taste it, we can't touch it, we can't see it, we can't hear it, we can't feel it, right? So it's easy for us to just disregard it, okay? But let me offer this to you, is that, the idea of love. Everybody knows the idea and the feeling of love. Whether you had it, you have it, you felt it to its entirety, or it got broken. You know what it feels like. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't hear it, but it's there. And I think we all need to spend equally same amount of time in those in this sixth sense, along with the 5 other senses. And that's how you start to really build that up. And I have 12-year-old twins, and I love them to death. And I realize that, I will be doing them a disservice if I don't talk to them about this sixth sense, because the 5 different senses is really easy, and it's everyday life. And so I started doing this exercise with them. So they're both into, my son is in Boy Scout, and my daughter's in Girl Scout. And right now it's cookie season, so we're, Girl Scout cookies is on the season right now, and I go door to door with my daughter. I'm the muscle. I'm the one who pulls the cart, and she goes and knocks on people's doors. Yeah. And this is how I've started to train them. Every time we walk by a house, I would ask her, or I would ask my son when he sells popcorn, "How do you feel about this house? You think someone's home?" And then they'll say, "Well, there's no cars in the driveway." Yep, there's no cars. You can see it with your eyes. I don't hear anyone. Yep, you can't hear with your ears. But what do you feel? How does it feel like? And it's really fascinating to watch them try to figure it out, because at first they're like, "I don't know." Okay, that's okay. Right? But formulate an idea, formulate a thought, even if it's a guess, even if it's okay, I'm going to guess to this one, there's someone there. Great, knock on the door. And then let's say somebody answers, like, "Okay, how did that feel?" So it's
just exposure to the thought of what intuition might feel like to them, so they can tap into it. So I think we all need that training.
Absolutely, 100%. Which now leads me to the second thought I have, as far as you said, patience. And let me add to a word to that, which comes hand in hand with patience, is humility. Mm-hmm. We have to have a sense of humility to fully understand patience. And then again, let me draw back to this exercise that I do with my kids. Is my son especially, he's such a perfectionist. He doesn't want to be wrong. He struggled with this exercise with me, because he doesn't want to tell me yes or no, or someone is home or someone is not. Yeah. And the reason why he didn't want to partake in the fun game that Dad made up is that he didn't want to be wrong, right? And so the conversation I had with him is like, it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have that sense of humility. You don't have to always be right, And so then from there comes the patience. Once you've embraced humility, you can be patient as long as you want, because it's okay to be just wrong. It's okay just to wait. I think we get pissed and we get mad when we wait, is because my time is valuable, right? I got stuff to do. Well, okay, get off the high horse, put on the humility hat for a second, and just sit and just wait,
How do we translate this conversation to, if there's an account director on the line, or like a producer? Creativity showing up and dissipating and transforming and re-showing up for people in positions outside of the creative department? Like, where are they going to experience this, or how?
Okay. So I'm going to say something that I know very few creatives in the industry say, and again, it goes back to the idea of humility, which is I 100% truly believe that everybody every human being that walks this face of the earth is a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea, okay, the idea itself, whatever that idea might be, an idea for a campaign, an idea for a logo, an idea for a strategy, an idea, for an ad. If you think about that as a form of energy, it's not biased to a creative person, an art director, or a creative director, or a writer. Right? An idea is going to go to anybody whose doors are open.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
An idea is gonna walk in. It's like, imagine an idea is a door-to-door salesperson, and it's gonna knock on everyone's doors. And the person who opens it is the one who's gonna walk into. And an account director, if he or she opens the door, the idea is gonna come to them. Okay. Now, here's a trick. Whatever that account director or that producer or the account coordinator or the traffic person or, studio person, however that person does with that idea, and how he or she shares that idea, it's up to them at that point. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we all know how we walked into a meeting, right? And, there's every department in that meeting, and that account executive says, I have an idea, and delivers this idea, and it might be the best idea in the room, right? And everybody's thinking it's the best idea in the room. But how that person just delivered it, right? Whether they're cocky, they're arrogant, or they say, you know what you should do? Mm-hmm. Wait a minute, I don't have to do shit. Excuse me. Right? This is what you should do. There's no here. I have the best idea. We've all been in that meeting. Yeah. How that person delivers that idea is, it's gonna, at that point, it's gonna make it or break it. It's gonna, it's gonna affect everybody in the room. Yeah. So the advice that I say, that I would share with that, is that, okay, when the idea comes to you, account person, planner, strategist, okay, take care of it. Take care of it like a precious thing, because it's what it is. And then from there, deliver it to somebody that could do something about it. Yeah. If you have an idea, share it, openly share it, passionately share it. Share it with kindness to the art director. Because then the art director or the writer or the creative director will then figure it out to say, wow, that's a really great idea. Let's figure out how to make it work. Let's bring it to life. And I think once every department kind of works in that fashion, and that sense of openness, then you start to really understand everybody's roles and struggles, and then you're open to it, and then you've just broken down the barriers, and then there's no ego anymore, and it's just the idea.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I actually have a talk that I give that's called The New Creative, and it's about how creativity shows up in departments outside of the creative department, and there's 4 points that I make about how creativity shows up. So the first one is just create it, right? Maybe you officially are in the creative department, so your job is to create it. The second one is to add to it, right? So this is when maybe you're in first round reviews on creative and the strategist is adding to it, or the producer is adding to it and saying, hey, I like that. What if we did this, right? So they're like adding the sprinkles and the whipped cream and the cherry on top to the creative idea, to the scoop that was there. But there's also shepherd the idea. So this is people in project management and even in finance, on the account team, where your job is to hold that creative idea in your hands and help shepherd it through the timeline with care in your hands, right? Which is, you're not going to diss the idea. You're not going to say the client's not going to buy it. You're not going to say, I don't know. You're just going to help it come to fruition. And then the fourth role is to promote the idea and to talk and speak positively into it, because I think we get a little bit of competition in the advertising space about whose idea it was, and well, mine wasn't picked, and I don't know, but man, once that idea is sold in, we all got to be supporters and promoters of it. So
absolutely,
creativity is going to show up differently.
Absolutely. One of the wonderful things that going back to Elizabeth Gilbert that she shared, and I truly believe this, and I think it's fascinating the way that we should kind of documented it, where this ownership, this sense of ownership of an idea that we all have, that current times have now. It's like, oh, this was my idea, or that team came up with that idea, so that it must be theirs. Is actually a fairly new concept, and what I mean about that is that back in the day of tribal times, right, where we all lived in huts and we gathered around the fire at night, and stories are told through in the fire, and we all huddled, and whether stories are told in this amazing ways or it's told through dance, through expressive creativity, and you have the dancers and the storytellers just tell these magical, amazing stories, and the way they tell it is just so magical and so inspiring, and that it almost feels like they were bestowed upon by God to tell the story, right? Like as they were dancing, they almost felt like they were flying, they were hovering above ground, right? And back then, people understood that person wasn't, he or she didn't come up with that story. That the energy was given to them, and so they shared it with everyone. And so they wake up the next morning, they're like, okay, now I got to go hunt. And that was that last night, and now I got to go. Right? There's like it's like it wasn't theirs. So what happened now is that we hit the Renaissance era, and the Renaissance, we shifted the responsibility to the artist. We started to say that, oh my gosh, the artist created this, and so the artist itself he's become the one that created it. He owned this painting, right? Then there was that shift. Then now all of a sudden the artist owned the idea, and you have to be an artist to create. And we've carried that on and on and on and on, where I think we start letting that go and say, no, nobody owns an idea. And I know this is really, I'm sure you have some business owners and some clients even on the phone that goes, oh, wait a minute, that kind of changes things. It's weird. It's different. Absolutely, it's weird and it's different. But if we look at it from this perspective where nobody owns the idea, so why don't we just focus on making the idea better? More interesting, more innovative. Instead of focusing on who owns it, let's just build it, but make it better.
I think that's just so critical in the advertising industry, right? A little less territorial and a little more communal, I guess, when it comes to getting our ideas out into the marketplace.
Absolutely, 100%. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with it still. I'm certainly not speaking like, oh yeah, well, I'm now transcended myself. No, I 100% struggle with it. I seek out mentors and I seek out conversations. A perfect example is 3 years ago when I started to do my artwork, and you've seen my artwork. And before I even did my very first art show, I was scared. I was scared out of my wit as far as showcasing my artwork to the public. And this is what I was afraid of. I was afraid that somebody was going to take my idea, my artwork, and they're going to replicate it. Because in the end of the day, let me put my humility hat on. Someone can do what I do, right?
Yeah.
And if you type in comic books, collage into Google, you'll see a bunch of people who kind of do something that I do. And so I seeked out my mentor. He's a wonderful artist, creative director, lived in Detroit, and he happened to be coming out here to California. And we went out to lunch, and I asked him. I said, "This is how I posed my questions. Like, what are your thoughts about intellectual property? Like, can I protect my intellectual property?" and he looked at me and goes, what does that mean? And so I explained to him, like, I'm afraid that someone might take my idea. And in a very Yoda-like, he said, "Okay, Fernando," said, imagine like an Olympic sprint runner. I'm like, okay. Now, imagine the sprint runner, as soon as the gun is shot, they're running towards that end line. He said, as soon as he worries, or he or she worries about the person to their right or to their left, they've lost the focus on the end line, and they've lost. Like, don't worry about everyone else, and just focus on what your goal is. Focus on what you're trying to do. And that was it. That was like, as soon as I stopped worrying about everything else and everyone else, it opened the floodgates. And 17 galleries later, and John Wayne Airport's going to feature my work. Portland Airport, I don't think I've shared that with you yet. Portland Airport at the Delta Terminal is going to feature my artwork.
Awesome.
It's really amazing. It's really fascinating. So I still struggle with it, and hoping to get better.
Well, I want to go back to this idea of patience, and then again, just the core idea of energy and creativity transforming itself. A lot of what's done in the ad industry is done on a deadline. So how do you incorporate, I'm going to have patience that this idea is going to flush out, but man, it's due on Tuesday. Like, how does transformation intersect with a timeline?
Yeah. That's great. Somebody asked me kind of a similar question as far as, how do I deal with just getting the work done, right? And I gave him an answer that was kind of like, he gave me a funny face, and I'll give you the same answer, and I'm curious if you're going to give me a funny face. I said to him, I feel like I'm a time traveler. And and he's like, okay, you got me hooked. And I said, here's the deal. Every time I get a project, every time I, get an opportunity, as soon as, yesterday I was briefed on a project. As soon as I see it, I see it done already. I see it finished. I see a concept done. Because if we think about it, in every problem, there is a million solutions, right? I think we would be very arrogant and stupid to think in one problem there is one solution. Come on. No, there's multiple solutions. Okay? And so all I do is I see a solution. Now, whether that solution is the ideal solution or the perfect solution or the best top 5 solution for that one problem, I'm not worried about that. I just see it done. I see it completed. And then now I have to travel back in time just to do it, because I already know it's done. So now I have to go back and say, okay, I'm not worried about getting it done because it's already done. So the concern, the worry, the useless effort of worrying about whether it's going to get done or not is gone, right? So now I can focus my effort on just
the doing. I love that. I'm going to steal that. I mean, there's so many ways that you can apply that. Like, it doesn't have to just be about a creative project, but I mean, there's so many things in your life. It could be about a conversation. Like, I'm dreading I don't know, a conversation with my teenage son when he gets home from school. I'm just going to visualize it done and it happened, and you know what? It both worked out, and then that takes a little bit of the anxiety away for me to approach that thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's I can imagine it's scary for some people, because then some people might think, well, I don't want to lock myself in, I don't want to disappoint myself or anybody. Well, again, then you're focusing on that. What you focus on is what you're going to come to fruition, right? So if you focus on disappointing someone, if you're focused on disappointing yourself, well, guess what? There's a high probability you're gonna disappoint yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think we get stuck on a path. Like, for instance, if we say, I'm gonna go to San Diego today. I'm driving to San Diego, and then my car breaks, right? And I get totally paralyzed because I was gonna take the car, and my path is now not available to me. Then I limit myself to think, well, shoot, the train station's right by my house, and it runs right to San Diego. I could have taken a train, or, well, shoot, my sister lives in San Diego, and she's actually driving, that way today. Like, all those other paths get shut off because I was so focused on the path rather than visualizing I'm already there at the destination.
And there's multiple solutions to that. There's multiple ways to get there, whatever there might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we keep creative ideas like fresh and unique and relevant? So if all the ideas, all the energy has dissipated out, the tide has gone out, and I'm here patient, I'm waiting for the tide to come back in. How do I make sure when they come back in that they're fresh and unique and relevant? Is there strategies that you use to make sure that you're staying in the highest creative mode you can?
Yes. I mean, one of them is exactly what we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes, is just like the openness of it all, and just because everything that we've been talking about is constantly shifting, it's constantly changing, and the ideals behind what I talked about. You can, 1 minute it could be this, the next minute it could be something else. And that's kind of the beauty of that, right? It's constantly shifting and changing. And so in order for me to stay fresh, quote unquote, fresh or relevant, is recognize the shift, recognize the change. JFK had this wonderful quote, change is the law of life. And once we understand that law and just really kind of look at it for what it is, not get scared by it, right? Not worry about it, then you can look at it as more of an open mind, a sense of humility. And when you see it, it's inspiring, absolutely inspiring. Movies, music, physical activities, all those things, we can easily say, oh, I've seen that kind of movie already. Oh, I know how this ends. Oh, I've heard this kind of music before and I don't like it. Oh, they're just repeating the same stuff over and over again. Like, oh, I've done this run 100 million times already, right? My gosh, I've done this path so many times. I've gone to the gym so many times already. Yes, if you kind of put a filter of, yes, I've seen this, yes, I've done this before, then, yeah, of course you're going to get stagnant.
Because it feels like marital advice, too,
What's that?
I said it kind of sounds like marital advice, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to keep things, you got to just kind of keep it fresh. You got to look at it through a fresh lens.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I mean, if we look at it as like we've done this and seen this before, then then yeah, of course, it's like you said, there's this law of attraction of like, it's going to come to fruition. But if we look at it in a way where you're a different person, like I'm a different person than I was 45 minutes ago, just having this conversation with you. Right? So of course, the way I look at things is going to be a little bit different. And I think that came from. So we're practicing Catholics, so don't hold that against me. And we became great. One of my best friends is my priest. He married us. He baptized my kids. He's this amazing chef. He actually catered my very first gallery event. If you remember, he was upstairs. He set out a dish. Yeah. Really wonderful. But he has this wonderful thing. Every Lent, when he does when at church they go through the story of the Passion, right? And he says this every year, and I love it every time he says this. And he says, everybody knows the story. Everybody knows the story of the Passion of Christ. Okay, you've heard it for years and years and years and years and years. The difference is you're a different person last time you heard it, because that was a year ago. Yeah. So listen to it with a different heart, with a different mind, with a different filter, and you will find something different every time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Different filter. Just look at things through a different lens. You know, one of the things that I've started to do just to open up like the receptivity to ideas. You know, I do a lot of writing and speech writing and presentations and things like that, and I get stuck a lot, is I've turned off the ambient noise. So, for instance, when I'm in my car now, I don't listen to the radio. And I just use that as time to think about, like, if I'm writing a speech and I'm stuck, I think about it, or I'll say it out loud. And I've put the antenna up for ideas to come to me. And I'll do the same thing when I'm running, is I've stopped listening to music when I run. And, you know, some people are like, oh, my God, I can never run without music. Like, that's what makes it go faster. For me, it's like, that's the only time in the day that ideas have the white space to come into me. Otherwise, I'm going with everything else. So this antenna to ideas and receptivity, and I love this, what you're saying about, like, look at it through a different filter. Like, hopefully the idea being, after this call today, everyone on the line can go back to their desk and the particular job that they have and be thinking about, how is creativity coming my way today?
Yeah.
Like you're the vessel for it to come through and manifest and come back out in some form.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating thought, and it's quite freeing. You know, it's really it gives you a sense of freedom, that you're more than just what everybody else have told you that you are. You know, we're so much more than what our business card says.
Yeah,
right?
Isn't that true? God, that's so true.
Or whatever it is our LinkedIn has on that little kind of, you know, scrollable profile page. So much more. And it's up to us to really absorb it, but not for the purpose of showboating or showcasing it to everybody else. You know, just it's okay just to have it with yourself, because then from there it will radiate. It will radiate out. It will come out. People will hear about it. People will talk about it. People want to know more. And the great thing about that, the people who want to know more, you want them to come to you to want to know more from you, as opposed to you going out to them.
That brings us back to attraction. Okay, so in the last few minutes, I'm going to open up the Q&A. If you'd like to ask Fernando a question, you just press *6 on your phone. So I'm going to go ahead and do. And if anybody has a question for Fernando as it relates to creativity or energy or just the idea of any of these points that we're talking about, go ahead and jump on in the queue. I know that a lot of our callers tend to be quiet, but I would love to hear from you guys today. So, Fernando, tell us just a little bit more about what got you into making this comic book art. I know there's a little bit of history there.
Yes. So I was a comic book collector during my middle school and part of high school years. And it really actually started with, I was not cool at all. I was not athletic. I was, and maybe I still am. I'm not. I was not charismatic. I wasn't part of the cool kids. We came out here from the Philippines, and I didn't know anyone. And my mother bought me a bunch of, just a handful of comics one day, and I started reading them, and I was just fascinated by them with the way they told stories. And I really was able to relate to the superheroes, and I related to them in the sense of they were, the characters themselves were normal, ordinary people that became extraordinary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me go on a quick tangent. I have to tell you, that is by far my favorite word, the word extraordinary. And the reason why it's my favorite word is because if you take the word extraordinary, it's basically the word ordinary with a little bit of extra in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So we all have the ability to be extraordinary, because we all start with as ordinary, and if we just put a little bit of extra, we can be extraordinary. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started collecting. I started buying and collecting these comic books and so on and so forth. And and then I stopped and went to college and moved out here to California. And one day I went back home to Michigan, and I saw my comic books in my mom's basement, and they were in their bins, and they were all water damaged. They weren't worth anything, but I didn't have the heart to throw them away because they gave me so much joy. And so I came home, and I was driving down the street on the 405, and I was exiting. And at the time, too, I was in the height of my creative career, and I started collecting quotes. I used to have those day planners that had the daily quotes on the top
mm-hmm.
right corner, and I would write them. I would type them up on this Word document, the ones that really related to me. And the reason why I collected quotes was that I would come back from a tough meeting, a client meeting or internal presentation, and I'd feel beaten up, and I'd read a quote, and it would make me feel a little bit better, kind of get me motivated again. And so this Word document started to build, and because I would keep on adding stuff to it. So one day I was driving down the street after I came back from Michigan, and this idea, as I was exiting off into my exit, just came out at me like a giant wave. And the idea was, people think that heroes are just fictional characters, that they're not real. Like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, they're not real. But in reality, there are real-life heroes that have lived and that lives among us. There are the Martin Luther Kings. There's the JFKs, the Nelson Mandelas, the Bruce Lees, right? And these people, real people, are ordinary people who have done something extraordinary. They weren't always perfect. They failed many times, but they got back up. And so this idea was this mashup to take my old comic books that just inspired me all the years and showed me all what fictional heroes did, and all these years, all these hundreds of quotes that I've collected throughout the years, and do this mashup of an artwork. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, I need to have those comic books over. And so my mom is great. She's this tiny little Filipino lady, and she packaged them up. Over 150 pounds of comic books was mailed over to me.
Awesome. Well, I want to encourage our listeners to go to your site, conceptzombie.com, and take a look, because you don't really understand how cool this is until you see some of Fernando's art pieces. Some of them are huge, but they're all so inspiring. So hop on over to conceptzombie.com. And we're also going to be putting a worksheet, a handout on the archive section of Empowership that's going to have some of our notes from today, Fernando's contact information, as well as some information on his upcoming gallery showings if anybody happens to be in those cities. Fernando, thank you so much for being on the call today. Loved the conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, friends. Thanks for devoting an hour of your morning to us. Appreciate you being here. And if any of your coworkers missed the call, direct them to the archive site, and we will see you ladies soon. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye, Fernando.